The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. We're glad that you've joined us today. Today we're going to be talking about stress. And there is such a thing as good stress and there is bad stress. Here to talk with us about stress and an interesting way to handle it is Dr. Skip McCarty. You've been doing stress seminars for over 20 years. You're a fellow of the American Academy of Stress. You've given talks to many different people. We're glad you can join us here at 3ABN and also our audience as well. Today we're going to talk about something that is a little bit unique, and that is singing, or the singing really of hymns as they relate to stress and stress management. How in the world did you come up with connecting hymns with stress management?
Well, Don, you're probably not going to read books on stress and come up with this. This I learned, but when you think about it, singing is part of every culture of the world. Mm-hmm. There is singing. People sing. And even if they can't sing very well, they have favorite songs, favorite tunes. And sometimes it's because of a tune, or many times it's because of the words of those hymns, those songs. And several years ago, I began, as part of my devotional time, to just start singing my way through the Seventh-day Adventist hymnal.
Okay.
There's 700 hymns here. And since I was doing research on stress, and I've been researching now for years, I wasn't really thinking about it when I was singing through hymns just to be singing as part of my worship experience. And I wanted to sing through every hymn in the book. And I didn't get very far before I recognized, hey, some of these are really related to stress issues, mm-hmm. and are really quite helpful. They would be helpful to people. So I began to put in the back of my book here, I began to put the numbers of the hymns that were related to stress. And after a while, I had 100 hymns there that were stress related. And I began to realize more and more, this is an awesome. And then I thought back then in my own experience and realized this is a very powerful resource for managing stress. So
it was through your singing through the hymns or looking at them in your own private devotions. You're not a public singer, maybe.
Correct.
You decided, hey, this has been very useful to me, and you made the connection there.
Yes, and as I thought back over the years, Don, of my own experience, I remembered a time I had never connected these before. I came to that conclusion through singing through the hymnal and began to just amass these numbers of hymns that were stress-related. But then I began to think back over the years, and there was a time, probably 35 years ago now, that I was driving from, I was pastoring in Winnemucca, Nevada, and I was driving 1,000 miles to visit family.
Winnemucca?
Winnemucca, Nevada.
Even the name sounds a little distressing to me.
It means one moccasin.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's not distressing. Okay.
We had a little congregation there, and I was driving by myself 1,000 miles to visit family. It was at a particularly stressful time in my life. Mm-hmm. And I could not get my mind off the stresses, and so I happened to have a hymnal with me. And so I began to sing hymns as I was traveling across country. And I'll tell you, the effect, it just pulled me out of it. And then when I would put it aside and listen to the radio for a while, my mind would start getting back into that stuff, and I'd have to start singing hymns again. And there were several hymns particularly that got me through that. But I'd forgotten all about that experience. Mm-hmm. And then later in my life, I went through a very, very devastating divorce for me. During that period of time, also, I could hardly even sleep at nights. But I remembered thinking back on that period that, again, there were songs, there were hymns that helped me at my most discouraging times during that period. Mm-hmm. But I had forgotten about it. Once you got through that experience, I'd forgotten about it. Then once I began singing through the hymnal and seeing how many hymns were stress-related, I thought back on those experiences and I said, this really is a powerful instrument, and I just hadn't accessed it intentionally before, like I'm going to do from this point on.
One of the great reformers, Martin Luther, talked about how hymns helped him in depressive times. I remember reading about that. So you mentioned the Seventh-day Adventist hymnal. Does that mean they need to be out of the Seventh-day Adventist hymn book? Are these all written by Seventh-day Adventists?
Well, interestingly, I had the same question in my mind about this, and I did a little research on it, and there's 97+% of the hymns that we have in the Seventh-day Adventist hymnal are just Christian hymns, not written by Seventh-day Adventists. We got them from other hymnals and from other sources and got permission to use them. You take any hymnal. It makes no difference where the hymnal it comes from, or it doesn't even have to be something in the hymnal, but just Christian hymns are a powerful resource.
And do you cover this in your seminar, Beyond Coping? Stress
Actually, I do not, because that seminar is designed more for the community.
Okay.
I feel this is a step beyond that, so we don't really have a section on this, because most people couldn't relate. A lot of the people I want people walking on off the street who aren't thinking about God, who are just thinking secularly, and I want to be able to relate to them and little by little by little open their hearts to the tremendous spiritual resources we have. But hymns are a step beyond where most of them would be.
Well, you know, I have to say that where I live, there's a lot of people that enjoy country music, and you've heard that old saying that if you listen to it long enough, you lose all your wife, your car, everything else. And they say if you listen to it backwards, you get them all back. So actually, you know, even those that are listening to other kinds of music, they can get depressed by that. I mean, I have. And certainly hymns have been really meaningful for me, too. Kind of a funny story, isn't it? Well, give us an example, then, to shift gears back to hymns, of a hymn that's been helpful for stress with you.
Okay. I'll take an example, Dear Lord and Father of Mankind. It's hymn number 480, written by John Greenleaf Whittier.
Famous poet.
Yes, listen to these words. Dear Lord and Father of mankind, forgive our feverish ways. Now think about that. Forgive our feverish ways.
Fast-paced, always at it.
Exactly. Even in the ministry. You know, we can be just feverish about our ways. And I love the way this starts. Dear Lord and Father of mankind, forgive our feverish ways. They're just stress-inducing when we live at that pace. Reclothe us in our rightful mind. In purer lives thy service find. In deeper reverence praise.
Great.
And I love the other verse here. Drop thy still dews of quietness. There's that element of peace and serenity that we strive for in stress management, till all our strivings cease. We can still be active, but there's a difference between active and just that kind of ceaseless striving. Take from our souls the strain and stress, and let our ordered lives confess the beauty of thy peace.
So in control.
And Don, a person could do a lot worse than singing that song at the beginning of the day, believe me. It just puts you in a spirit. It puts you in a mood. And it is, I think, an awesome resource just in and of itself to help with stress.
So you just sing this in the shower, or you sing this, you memorize it?
I do.
Okay, so these hymns, they truly just kind of encapsulate what you'd want. Any other hymns that you have been just really blessed by in this way?
Another one that is, I can't say too much for this hymn.
Okay.
It is so awesome. It's called How Firm a Foundation. I think it's number 509 in our Seventh-day Adventist hymnal. It actually, the author is anonymous. We got it from an old hymnal, Rippon's A Selection of Hymns, it's called. But it is rooted in Scripture. Every verse of this is rooted in Scripture. And just listen to these words and think if you're going through a stressful time and having these words impact you. How firm a foundation, ye saints of the Lord, is laid for your faith in his excellent word. I don't know if we dare sing it, Don, but I can hardly read the words without singing, and I sing so awful that it might destroy the program. But what more can he say than to you he has said, to you who for refuge to Jesus hath fled?
Okay.
So that's just saying you have tremendous resource. What more could God give you than what I've already given you? And now it starts just going through promise after promise. Don, you could take only one verse of this hymn and memorize that one verse and sing it over and over in a stressful time and get help. But you put all these verses together. It's just awesome, the impact it can have. Now think of this. Fear not, I am with thee. Oh, be not dismayed, for I am thy God, and will still give thee aid. I'll strengthen thee, help thee, and cause thee to stand, upheld by my righteous, omnipotent hand.
So that's a very meaningful, personal
Awesome.
acquaintance with God.
Awesome. And it doesn't stop. When through the deep waters, and see, this is God speaking to us. So much of our hymns are us speaking to God. This is God speaking to us. When through the deep waters, I call thee to go, the rivers of sorrow shall not overflow. For I will be with thee, thy troubles to bless, and sanctify to thee thy deepest distress.
So he sanctifies the stress in our lives.
He takes the distress in our life and he brings meaning out of it. He brings something good out of it. He says, I'm with you through this, and that makes it okay. I'll walk with you. And when through fiery trials thy pathway shall lie, my grace all sufficient shall be thy supply. There's the 2 Corinthians 2:9, or 12:9. The flame shall not hurt thee, I only design thy dross to consume and thy gold to refine. In other words, trust me through this experience, and I'll do something good in your life if you just trust me and hold on to me. Don't give up. Don't lose faith. And Don, it just keeps coming and coming. The next verse. The soul that on Jesus hath leaned for repose, I will not desert to his foes. That souls, though all hell, should endeavor to shake. And sometimes you're in an experience, that's what you feel like. You feel like you're just being shaken to the core by the forces of hell. Here it comes. I'll never, never forsake. I can tell you, Don, I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and my mind starts going. In fact, I'll be honest with you, the last several nights I've woken up. And because I can't get out of my mind, when you first night when you came here to the area, and we've been rooming together during the tapings here, you brought this magazine. I hadn't seen this before, the Time magazine issue of the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Towers. First time I'd gone through and actually seen the pictures here. But as I was going through and seeing pictures, they show pictures of the people jumping out of the buildings. They show pictures of the explosions and of some of the horrible things taking place here. And I went to bed. It was late at night when I looked this through. I woke up in the middle of the night. I literally pictured myself having to make a choice to jump out of the buildings. Pictured myself being on one of those planes, and I realized, and my stomach started burning. And I just began to sing this hymn over and over, very slowly, concentrated on the words, where God said, no matter what, Skip, no matter what, I'll be with you. I'll go through anything with you. And it's going to be okay. If you trust me, it'll be okay. Even if, quotes, worst case happens on this earth, it's going to be okay in the heavenly economy. Just trust me. Awesome. Absolutely awesome.
So an anonymous author, but he wrote those words. You know, there's actually a program that's on Christian stations that a man preaches through the Bible, and that's his theme song. He has How Firm a Foundation, and it's always a great comfort to hear that. And you know, I would say maybe there are people watching today that say, hey, look, I'd like to get a hold of a Seventh-day Adventist hymnal even though I am a secular person, because frankly I think many times people are just, they don't realize how depressive the music they're listening to is. And these are just very hopeful, what would you say, testimony-laden, experience-laden lyrics that can just bring the Spirit of God and can bring people out of stress.
Don, in December 2000, I was the opening speaker of the International Congress on Stress held in Hawaii. It wasn't because I'm a great speaker. It wasn't because they think I'm the lead stress researcher in the world. No, not that at all. It's because I submitted an abstract to read as a paper there sometime during the Congress on the Bible as a resource for stress management. And stress researchers today know that spirituality reduces stress. They don't know why. And they were curious as to what would a minister stress researchers say
about this.
about the Bible as a resource for stress management. But since I read that paper, I realized that maybe not quite as equal, but very, very high on the list, hymns have a similar impact on people. And one of the reasons I think that some of the hymns have stood the test of time as they have is because they speak so deeply to people who are going through trials.
We're talking with Dr. McCarty. He's written much in a seminar called Stress Beyond Coping about how to deal with stress. We're talking about hymns as they relate to stress and music. Join us when we come back.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Deal and Dr. Eileen Leddington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Deal and Dr. Leddington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge, so call or write today.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Skip McCarty, and we're talking about stress. We're talking about how it is we can handle stress, and the thing we're talking about today is this connection with music and stress, more specifically the famous old hymns, Christian hymns. And you've shared with us that this journey you've been on has been a great blessing to you at pivotal times in your own personal life, but that there's over 100 hymns that you've found that are related to stress.
Well over 100, maybe 200 now.
How does a hymn like this have the ability to help someone that's going through a period of stress?
Well, Don, I've created what I call a stress management pyramid.
Okay.
That stress management pyramid takes the 7 components, 7 keys of managing stress, arranges them in hierarchical order.
Okay.
And at the top of that pyramid, you have the most powerful components of managing stress. And notice at the very top, you have spiritual integration, the prayer, spiritual life. And then right close to that, you have viewpoint. That's your attitude, the eyes through which you look at life through. Hymns encompass both of those. They're very definitely spiritually oriented and have powerful spiritual resources, and they help you shape attitudes toward life. There's an atheist professor at Stanford who's an expert in the field of stress, wrote a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and several editions of that. Very good book on the physiology of stress. Toward the end of his book, he makes this statement. He says, the primary assertion about the protective effects of belief strikes this atheist as perfectly logical if you believe in the right kind of God or gods. He said, if the God is one who intervenes in human affairs with rules that are mysterious, if it's an intervening deity with discernible rules, and if on top of all that the deity is viewed as benign, in other words, he's not going to hurt you. So he's saying, if he has rules and they're cause and effect, so you know if you do certain things, you'll get certain results. And if this isn't a deity that's going to hurt you, he says the stress-inducing advantages must be extraordinary. Then he goes on to say, if you can view cancer and Alzheimer's disease, the Holocaust and ethnic cleansing, if you can view the inevitable threshold through which your own heart will cease to beat, all in the context of a loving plan, that must constitute the greatest source of support for stress he's talking about, imaginable. Now,
So
he is exactly right on, and hymns are part of those spiritual resources.
Not
that help
only is he
provide
having
that.
a hard time remaining an atheist, he's starting to make a decision about which religion he wants, and it looks like he's pointing right toward Christianity.
Exactly. Because in another place in that same quotation that I didn't have in there, he said, if you believe you can call upon your God and get an answer, which most religions, he says, don't believe that, that's another element. Do you have a God that would be a great source of support?
Call upon me and I will answer and show you great things which you know not, says Jeremiah.
Exactly.
So, I mean, he's limiting himself to a real picture there.
Exactly. And Don, I'm not saying every hymn
Right.
is a stress resource, but many of them are.
What a powerful thing to know. Can you
It
give
is.
another example of a hymn that could have that kind of effect?
Let me put another one on the screen. It's called, the title of it is Day by Day, and Carolina Sandal Berg wrote the hymn. She was 26 when she wrote the song. Her father had just drowned. Her father was a pastor, and he had just drowned before she wrote this song. It's a beautiful hymn. Day by day and with each passing moment, strength I find to meet my trials here, trusting in my Father's wise bestowment, talking about her Heavenly Father. I've no cause for worry or for fear. He whose heart is kind beyond all measure gives unto each day what he deems best. Lovingly it's part of pain and pleasure, mingling toil with peace and rest. Every day the Lord himself is near me, with a special mercy for each hour. All my cares he fain would bear and cheer me, he whose name is Counselor and Power. The protection of his child and treasure is a charge that on himself he laid. As your days, your strength shall be in measure. Think about that. As your days, your strength shall be in measure. God knows what's coming today, and he gives you the grace, the strength at the beginning of the day to handle whatever's coming. This the pledge to me he made. The final verse, help me, Lord, when toil and trouble meeting, ere to take is from a Father's hand. One by one the days, the moments fleeting, till I reach the promised land.
Powerful.
It is. It is just an awesome resource.
So these hymns, they can just, in your pyramid there, it not only is a spiritual thing, but it can change your viewpoint.
It can.
And then reconnects you. The other side of your pyramid was close relationships. If you sing these with other people, it's almost as if you're coming back into community.
Well, you're putting those three top components of that stress pyramid together when you're singing with other people, and you're really investing yourself in those words. And Don, you cannot have a depressing thought and one of these hymns in your mind at the same time. You can't do it. So you can actually change discouragement, and many times, so much of stress is process of stress. In other words, it's not real stress. It's not like I'm attacking you and beating you. It's you're thinking about something. You're worrying about something. You're thinking about some past hurt or loss of some kind, and that's creating stress. And if you start plugging in something more positive into your mind, like these wonderful promises, these great hymns, you start repeating them to yourself, it literally chases the process of stress away from your body. Your body chemically responds to that in a positive way.
I want to look at another example, but what you're saying reminds me of a quote by a philosopher whose name was, I believe, Pogo, P-O-G-O is how he spells it. And he said, if you allow me to write the songs for a nation, I'll tell you what it's going to be like in 25 years. Because he recognized it could change the viewpoint of a whole nation.
Yeah. And it's kind of strange that we'd be talking about hymns when we're talking about stress management, and in terms of a real serious discipline. But they're very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Give us another example. I'm loving these hymns. What's another example of a hymn that has a great effect?
Well, there's another one that I love. It's called In the Cross of Christ I Glory. Listen to this. In the cross of Christ I glory, towering o'er the wrecks of time. And John Bowring, by the way, was said to have been approaching the shores of South China and on South China Sea, and he saw this cross that a hurricane had come through and had destroyed everything except this cross, which is standing up over this village there. So towering o'er the wrecks of time, all the light of sacred story gather round its head sublime. When the woes of life o'ertake me, hopes deceive and fears annoy. There's a lot of life where that applies to right there. Never shall the cross forsake me. Lo, it glows with peace and joy. And if you know anything about stress management research, they're striving for peace and joy. That's what we're trying to create in stress management. Then I love this song, this verse. When the sun of bliss is beaming, in other words, it's not a bad day, it's a good day. It's a great day. Light and love upon my way, from the cross the radiance streaming adds new luster to the day. In other words, a spiritual relationship makes a good day better. It doesn't just take a day that's going bad and make it bearable.
It makes a good day better.
Exactly. Exactly. Bane and blessing, pain and pleasure, by the cross are sanctified. Peace is there that knows no measure, joys that through all time abide.
Was there anything else that you learned as you've been looking at hymns and going through that hymn book you want to share?
Well, Don, there were two surprises to me. One is, our hymnal, the Seventh-day Adventist hymnal, is grouped in sections. It's grouped by subjects. All about Jesus are in one section, worship of God in another, etc. The hymns, and this caught me by surprise, the hymns that had the highest percentage, the subject that had the highest percentage of stress-related hymns, I felt, stress-related, were the Second Coming of Christ hymns.
The Blessed Hope.
The Blessed Hope. They offer such hope. Hymn after hymn after hymn is offering hope for reunion with loved ones, hope that the trials and griefs of this life will be over, and hymns that motivated people to be active and energetic and hopeful in this life and joyful in this life.
So Second Coming really impressed you?
Second Coming. The other one was the hymns of the Sabbath. And most of these not written by Seventh-day Adventists, but hymns on the Sabbath, because rest and relaxation and peace and quiet are so important in stress management research, to stress management researchers, that those hymns were just bullseye, hymn after hymn on the Sabbath, were just saying, what a wonderful peace to lay down our challenges of the week and just to have this respite.
What does the Bible say specifically about hymns and stress management?
Well, it's got several, admonishes us to be involved in hymns. Colossians 3 is one scripture that says, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since members of one body you are called to peace. So it has the element of peace there. And be thankful. Let every word of Christ dwell in you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, and as you sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratitude in your hearts to God. I tell you, those hymns, those songs create gratitude and peace. I've experienced that and found it to be true for other people.
So this is a biblical concept as well, and it points us to the pathos of those old hymns, the Psalms, I guess you'd say.
Exactly, and some contemporary hymns as well are very powerful to help that.
So how does this all fit then in your overall, stress pyramid, if you will?
Well, let me just kind of rephrase that, if I could. We'll put the stress pyramid up for a moment. And I recommend, stress management isn't just hymn singing, Don. It's not just
all
hymn
of
singing.
these things.
It's all these things. Eating healthily, exercising, having periods of relaxation, having good, wholesome relationships, and then with all these other things as well. It means, I think, as one of the components of the spiritual, the most important, the spiritual component, and having a healthy attitude toward life, viewpoints, a healthy belief system, is to commit some hymns, learn some hymns, and at times of real need in your life, just run those hymns through your mind, and it'll just pull you right out of discouragement. Very powerful to do that.
This has been most helpful. We're thankful that you could be with us, and we're glad that you could be with us as well. We hope that you will take this advice seriously. Perhaps you want to get a hold of a Seventh-day Adventist hymnal. We can tell you how to do that here at 3ABN. Perhaps you want to get a hold of this seminar. Whatever you do, go on your way singing today and have health that lasts for a lifetime.